Today we're going to review adding and subtracting fractions. So I'm going to do a couple problems of adding and then I'll do a couple problems of subtracting. So let's look at number one. Number one is 1/3 plus 2/7. When I'm looking at these fractions, I notice right away that they have different denominators, the 3 and the 7. Since the 3 and the 7 are different, I need to then come up with a common denominator before I can add these fractions together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the side and I'm going to list my 3 and I'm going to list my 7. I'm going to make a little T-chart, and under each of the numbers I'm going to list the multiples. So I'm going to do 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. I'm going to stop there. Now I'm going to list the multiples of 7. 7, 14, 21, 28. I'm going to stop there. So looking at these numbers, I am going to find the least common multiple. Therefore, I'm looking for the smallest number they have in common, and that is 21. So 21 is now going to become our new denominator. So right across from the old fraction, I'm going to put 21 here, and I'm going to put 21 here. So we're finding equivalent fractions now. Remember the saying, whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top, or whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. So I'm going to start with 2/7. I'm going to ask myself, 7 times what gave me 21? I know that 7 times 3 gave me 21. So whatever I do to the bottom, I'm now going to do to my top number, my numerator. So now I'm going to do 2 times 3 gives me 6. So that is my new fractions. 2/7 is equivalent to 6 over 21. Now 1/3. 3 times what gives you 21? 3 times 7 gives you 21. Whatever I do to the bottom, I'm now going to do to the top. 1 times 7 is 7. Now I have 7 over 21 plus 6 over 21. Okay, so 7 plus 6, so you have to add your numerators. 7 plus 6 gives me 13, and then your denominator stays the same. So this is my answer. There's nothing that can go into 13 that can also go into 21. It is simplified. Now let's look at number 2. 7/8 minus 1/4. Pay attention to the symbols here. So I cannot subtract these two fractions because they do not have a common denominator. The denominators are different. I have 8 and 4. So same thing. I'm going to go over to the side. I'm going to list 8. And then I'm going to list 4. 8, 16, 24. Now I'm going to list my multiples for 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Okay. So I noticed that they have 8 in common. I noticed they have 16 in common. I noticed they have 24 in common. Always go with a smaller number. So I'm going to circle 8. 8 is my least common denominator. If you chose a different number, that's still okay, but you most likely will have more simplifying to do in your final answer. All right, so 1/4 now has a new denominator of 8. So I'm going to ask myself, 4 times what gives you 8? 4 times 2. Whatever you do to the bottom, you then need to do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. 7/8 is going to stay 7/8 because 8 is our denominator. Now I am going to subtract these numbers. When subtracting, you subtract just the numerators. 7 minus 2 gives you 5, and then your denominator once again stays the same. 5/8. 5/8 is already simplified. There is no number that can go into 5 that can also go into 8. Okay, so these are just normal fractions that we are adding or subtracting. We find a common denominator and then we add or subtract them. Now we're going to do some practice with mixed numbers. So remember, a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction together. So think of it like you're mixing them together, the whole number and the fraction. So it's going to be the same exact thing that we just did, but we're throwing a whole number into it. So I have 1 3/10 plus 2 2/5. I need to find a common denominator before I can do anything. If you want, you could probably figure out a common denominator in your head. If not, go to the side and make your T-charts. I'm going to list the multiples of 10, 10, 20, 30. List the multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15. I'm going to stop right there because I already see a number they have in common, which is 10. So 10 is the least common multiple. So 10 is now our new denominator. Okay. 3/10 gets to stay 3/10. Don't forget to bring your whole number over. 2/5 is now going to change to something over 10. 5 times what gives you 10? 5 times 2 gives you 10. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. Don't forget to bring over your whole number. Now I can add these up because they have the common denominators. Always start with your fractions. 3 plus 4 is 7. You add your numerators. Your denominator stays the same. Now 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 and 7/10 is your final answer. There's no number that can go into 7 that can also go into 10, so that is already simplified for you. Now let's do subtracting with mixed numbers. Once again, it's a mixed number because there's a whole number and a fraction. You'll subtract your fractions, then you subtract your whole numbers. Okay, I can't subtract. I need a common denominator because 8 and 4 are different. Go to your side, draw out your T-chart, or if you can do this in your head, go for it. 8, 16, I'm going to stop right there. 4, 8, 12, 16. Okay, 16 and 8 they have in common. But I want the smallest number, so I don't have to do much simplifying. The smallest number is 8. Okay, so 2 and 5/8 gets to stay 2 and 5/8 because 8 is already the denominator. Now I'm going to change 1 and 1/4. The new denominator is 8. So 4 times what is 8? 4 times 2 is 8. Whatever you do to the bottom, now do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. Don't forget to bring over your whole number. Now we are subtracting. 5 minus 2 is 3, and your denominator stays the same. 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 and 3/8, look, lucky me, is already simplified. So remember, when you're adding and subtracting fractions, you need to have a common denominator. In order to do that, you go to the side, you list your multiples out, you find your least common multiple, and that becomes your new denominator. And then you figure it out. Whatever you do to the bottom, you then do to the top. Subtract or add your fractions, and then you do your whole numbers. Alrighty. Let me know if you have any questions.